morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to take a look at what's going on with Psyduck and talk about the fact that maybe, just maybe, this might not be an ideal scenario. Now, what we're talking about here is the new Psyduck, and it's a very, very, very important Psyduck. This Psyduck needs to not be slept on. And the reason is it's got a redonkulous ability. It's one we've talked about a few times because it's very important. We don't need to talk too much about what it does, but the short version is it turns off abilities that involve a Pokemon KOing themselves to use the ability, and that includes things like Magneton, which accelerates energy, but mostly it's a pair of Dusclops and Dusk Noir that we're mostly looking at here. They are very, 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 very good cards. They see a huge amount of play. But the thing is, they don't work with Psyduck out. And it's not like, well, they don't get their ability if Psyduck's out, but it's alright, they can do something else. No, they really can't. Like, those cards do nothing. They don't have a good attack. They don't have anything else going for them. The ability only works if they KO it. Make no mistake about it, like, the second those cards lose their ability, they just become terrible cards. But they see a lot of play right now of a whole bunch of different things. And that's why Psyduck exists. And to be fair, also Golduck. Golduck has the same ability. Realistically speaking, it's extra HP. That's the only real important thing about Golduck here. Again, nobody's playing these Pokemon for their abilities, so Golduck really exists to give extra HP to Psyduck. If that's something you're really interested in, then yes, absolutely. But it really is like that's it. You get more HP, that's it, that's your lot. Okay. Well, Japan got Psyduck and Golduck a little while ago. They were in the promo packs that came around with Glory of Team Rocket over in Japan. And so that's kind of in line with Destined Rivals. That's about the timeline Japan's working on here. Yet we obviously didn't get it then. We aren't going to have it before Worlds. We're going to be having it with Mega Revolution, which is, well, one or two main sets later. It really depends on whether you count Black Bolt and White Flare as main sets. Technically speaking, in Japan they count as main sets. In the West they don't. So that doesn't actually really help at all. In Japan they are technically Scarlet and Violet 11, main set. In the West they are technically Scarlet and Violet 10.5. Extra set, mini set, phrase it how you will. So, no, I'm afraid it doesn't actually really help very much at all. But the biggest issue here is, well, there's two big issues. We'll get to the second one in a minute. The first big issue is we don't get this card for the World Championships. The World Championships is going to happen, and we are not going to have this card. That's a bad thing. Because this is relevant. Partly it makes us play in a different format. It's actually not that big a deal for us. It's a very big deal for Japanese players. Because again, for the past few months, Japan have been playing in a format where they have this card. Right now in Japan, you can play Dusk Noir decks. They're legal for tournament play and all of that. But realistically, it's so dodgy trying to play a Dusk Noir deck, and Japanese tournaments are played largely as best of one. So if you come across a Dusk Noir deck, it's just not, that's a whole round gone. It's very awkward. But now all of a sudden we're saying to Japan, hey, do you want to play in the same format you've been in, except without Dusk Noir? And here's where it gets really interesting. Because at the World Championships, Japan is used to going back in time. That's a standard thing. Japan is generally ahead of us in terms of releases. So when we get to Worlds, we go by what's come out in the West rather than what's come out in Japan. So Japan essentially turns back the clock. So when Worlds comes around, as an example, we'll be playing with Black Bolt and White Flare. That will be legal for Worlds. But in Japan, they will already have Mega Revolution out and legal. So Japan has to kind of forget about Mega Revolution, pretend it never got printed. It's not legal for Worlds. The thing is, when Japan had their black and white format, Black Bolt and White Flare format, they had Psyduck, which means they didn't really have Duswa. That's a little bit of an issue. Now, again, it's Worlds, so we do expect the players to be able to adapt to whatever format they're given. These are supposed to be the biggest and bestest players in the world, don't get me wrong. But it's still a very awkward situation where you're saying to Japan, hey, go back in time to fit our metagame. Oh, by the way, they're missing a key card from the meta which you had that we don't. It is potentially not ideal for Japanese players. So that's issue number one. Issue number one is Worlds is going to come around and we are making Japan flick around to a format which is a lot different to what they're used to. What's issue number two? This is not a great way to release a really good card, because it's going to be so much more difficult to get hold of. When I went to Seattle in 2017, or Bellevue for the Caster Conference, we had a really fun time, but we're big TCG nerds. And the second we got to the hotel, we dropped our stuff and we ran across the road to go to a Toys R Us to try and get the Lurantis 1-pack blister, because it was a nightmare to get hold of in Europe, but in the US it was actually pretty easy to get hold of. We picked them up, but it was annoying because that was a viable card. That was a usable card that was actually annoying to get hold of. Was it the end of the world? No. Would it have been way better for it to be made available in an easier fashion? Yes, obviously. Basically, it let grass and fire Pokemon do an extra 20 damage. It was a relevant card, and having to go and pick it up in a blister was actually low-key kind of annoying. And it's happened at times in the past. There was a Landorus, which was in a free pack blister, a Plasma Landorus. And that was another one. Now, that was actually the other way round. In Europe and the UK, it was actually very easy to get hold of, or at least I found it in a bunch of places. Maybe I'm just a big old nerd. But in the US, it was actually a real pain to get hold of. And I ended up hooking up a bunch of friends with promos because they were struggling to actually get hold of the card. Well, it's happening again. And it wasn't good when it was Landorus, and it wasn't good when it was Lurantis, and it's not good now when it's Psyduck. By the way, I'm sure there are other examples of blister promos being good. Let's just go for these. I've given you a couple. Okay, one more, because this is actually a really fun example. There was the book, the Platinum Rising Rivals Player's Guide, and that actually came with a Toxicroak promo, which was an exclusive promo. And it's a product that's annoying to get pictures of, so I had to grab one off of eBay, boo, etc. But the point is, these were books that were really annoying to get hold of because they came with an exclusive Toxicroak G promo, which actually ended up being a staple in a bunch of different builds of Plasma deck. Well, it's happening again with a Psyduck. And the problem is, they're just not going to print enough. Like, let's say your average league has, 30 players. And let's say they want to grab 2 copies each. Because, well, you know what? One might be prized, so let's go and grab 2. And then I'm going to either play 1 or 2, depending. Is every local league going to get 60 copies of this free pack blister? Oh, and by the way, the Psyduck is going to be way more sought after than the Golduck. So if they're ordering in 60 Psyduck, they're ordering in 60 Golduck that people aren't necessarily going to actually want. Now, I don't have actual proper identifiable numbers because they're just not published. But I am hearing that a lot of online stores are getting 1 box, which is 6 Psyduck, 6 Golduck. Now, stores that actually hold events generally a lot of the time do tend to do a bit better with stuff like this. So maybe they're going to have a few more. But does anyone actually think there's going to be enough free pack blisters to just push the price of this promo right down? Like, you're going to have to buy the blisters to get the promo, and that's if you can find the blister. And get ready to walk into a lot of shops and find that they've got infinite Golduck, but not a Psyduck to be found. And look, I get why they're being released in this way. The answer's really simple. Gym promos in Japan become blister promos over here. This is just the way that it's done. I wouldn't expect them to suddenly turn around and do things massively differently to how they usually do. That would be weird. And maybe Psyduck doesn't end up being that big of a deal. Maybe it all blows over quite nicely. Maybe there are enough of these. A lot of what I'm saying here is supposition, but it is supposition based on what has happened in the past. And what we've seen a lot from these blisters in the past is when they get printed with playable cards in, when they end up with good promos, we do end up in a little bit of trouble because there just aren't enough of them out there. It's the reason why the promo in Japan has jumped up in price in a way that other promos just don't. Gym promos in Japan tend to be very cheap. I pick up, well, pretty much all of them, to be fair. And if there's any missing, we're going to have to pick them up as well. And they're generally super cheap and super easy to pick up. But that has not been the case for Psyduck because it's actually playable. If we look at other free pack blisters, for Destined Rivals, it was Kangaskhan and Zeb Striker, both of which started life as magazine promos in Japan. The magazine promos, in addition to the gym promos, tend to populate our blisters. They were both kind of fun and mechanically unique, but no one actually thought they were any good. They were kind of terrible. Over in Journey Together, we had Scrafty and Yanmega that were also just gym promo cards, like the Psyduck and the Golduck, but they're terrible. Not in a bad way. They're promos. I don't want them to be good. They ain't good. Psyduck represents a couple of issues right now. Firstly, the fact that it's not going to be legal for Worlds is a bit of an issue. Partly because it hurts the format and partly because it's annoying for Japanese players to have to adapt even further than we normally ask them to, and we always ask them to adapt. And the second issue we've got here is the fact that there is a real question about how available this Psyduck is going to be and what that's going to do to the price. It remains to be seen if it does happen that way, but I'm telling you that this is the general way it tends to go. You have been warned. But I've told you all about it now, so now it's over to you guys. Are you worried about Psyduck? Do you want to play Psyduck, or do you think it's a bit something and nothing? Let me know in the comment section. Get us! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely Derek, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and seems to be a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.